Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Global Door TC201 series door closer. A TC201 series door closer is a fairly universal closer that's going to allow you to handle most installations and is ubiquitous. You'll see this door closer all the time. It will be your go-to door closer, or certainly can be. Because it's capable of handling almost, well, in most situations. Let me exclude out the part that is keeping me from saying all installations. It doesn't include a parallel arm bracket. The fact of the matter is, I don't understand why it does not. The closer should include it from the factory, and they should just change the sell price so that they can advertise it as a tri-packed, adjustable spring tension, ADA compliant closer. It's adjustable spring tension and ADA compliant, but it's not tri-packed. So this closer out of the box can only do a regular arm or a top jam mount. And the truth of the matter is, a parallel arm is a very common installation, especially when you have an adjustable spring power sort of door closer, because if you have a 3-foot door and a 3070 door and you install it regular arm mount, probably a 3 setting on the spring would work. If you install it in a parallel arm mount, you need to have it adjustable to kick that up to a 4 spring because of how the mechanics of a parallel arm closer work in terms of the efficiency of a door closer doing its job. You need the parallel arm bracket to do that. Why they don't include it, I don't know. There's a link below this video to where you can pick that up separately. Unless you know you're doing a pull-side installation, then don't order it, but I really recommend that you order it. And that global, I think you should change and make this TC201 a tri-packed closer. Let's move on. It is a grade 1 closer. That's substantial. That means that it has been tested to 1,000,000 cycles, which is the highest rating that you're going to find on a piece of hardware, really. This is an adjustable spring, as I said earlier, from 3 to 6, but it's also handicap compliant, so that it will comply with the 7.5 pounds of force maximum required or allowed to push a door open like you'd have on a handicap bathroom, things of that nature. It is, because of its footprint, will bolt down into a incredible quantity of existing door closers. The 9 1/16 dimension from center to center horizontally is a common footprint that you'll find across the industry in closers that look like these. It is UL listed. It's UL 10C compliant for positive pressure. It's an aluminum alloy body, non-handed and reversible. 2 independent valves control the sweep, the sweep and the latch. Back check is optional and is not included on this closer. You have to order a back check version of this closer for it. Does compact for a standard regular arm or a top jam mount, and is included with machine and wood screws, available in aluminum or Duranautic, and custom colors can be done. Now let's take a visual tour of the closer itself and go through it. Of course, here is the business end of the closer. And immediately you'll see this modern looking door closer is something that is common all the time. Actually, this body includes a back check. I don't know that back check is going to be something that you're going to find on all closers. If you need a back check version of this closer, be sure to order one that is back check, or make sure that the one that you order, or if this is the closer that you're ordering, make sure that it's back check. We'll go over that in a moment. Overall body length, per the extended description, we've got it at 9 7/8, but it's really closer to about 9 11/16. What is going to be common is that 9 1/16 center to center on the screw holes. So the center from here to the center to here, 9 1/16. That vertical height, I'm pretty sure, is 3/4 inch. Indeed. So if you are replacing a closer that's 9 1/16 horizontally centered and then 3/4 inch vertical, this closer is going to bolt in just perfectly for it. You've got a latch valve here. You've got a sweep valve here. This is going to be the spring tension valve that's here, and then this body happens to feature a back check. The rest of the visual tour will include the standard arm. This arm you will use for either a regular arm mount or a top jam mount. You've got your main arm here, you've got your forearm here, your shoe. This is the portion that connects to the door closer body itself. Okay. Adjustable to help you work with different dimensions on the frame, meaning different reveal dimension between, if you're doing a top jam mount, the dimension from the face of the frame where you're installing the body to the face of the door. The deeper the jam depth, the greater the reveal. And we'll go over that dimension in a moment. Okay, there's that. Then you'll have a cap for the spindle side that you're not using. So the bottom side, if it's a regular arm, or the top side if it's a top jam. You just snap that cap down on. We'll give you a completed sort of installation look. You will have a Allen wrench for adjusting your valves. You will have your screw package that's here. Sorry. And you will have your installation instructions. Now, let's jump into reviewing the documents that are below this video. So first of all, there is a link below this video to a document called Installation Instructions. Okay, that's great, and that's where we're going to start. So the installation instructions for this door closer, they show the parallel arm mount installation as well, and we're going to briefly go through that only because it's very common for you to have the parallel arm bracket with this. Okay, now, most door closer installation packets, sheets, are generally, well, there's one page of summary and maybe part contents, an overview of how it's installed, and then the pieces that are included. There's then 3 pages worth of specific installations based on the 3 methods: regular arm, top jam arm, top jam mount, and parallel arm. There's generally then a discussion on a single page in terms of how to adjust the valves, and that actually, these closer instructions have 6 pages. Page 1 is going to be summary. Page 2 is top jam mount. Page 3 is regular arm mount. They get into a drop plate installation on a top jam as well. That's atypical. A top jam installation is where a top jam with a back plate or a mounting plate is where you don't have substantial dimensional properties on the header of the frame for you to physically fit this on. Sometimes you've got to drop the body down below because you can't actually screw this because the frame is so small, or based on the templating requirements. There's a parallel arm installations and then the door closer adjustment. So page 1 is basically going to tell you a review of how what the 3 ways are of installing the door closer. It will also tell you how to adjust the spring based on the installation. Okay, now that's very important because you'll most likely not end up adjusting it, but it's probably more likely you'll end up adjusting it a little bit. Here's what the chart in the lower right hand corner of page 1 that tells you how many turns on the spring power, which is here, is necessary based on how you're installing it and the size of the door. So what you see, let's just take the example of a regular arm 3-foot door. 4 turns would be the recommended amount of tension to be set on this for an interior door. Okay. Now keep in mind, I do want to back up and clarify, this closer can be ordered ADA compliant. The TC201 is not ADA compliant out of the box. You have to order the TC201 ADA. So the fact that this is a 3 to 6 series closer makes it non-ADA compliant. If you need an ADA compliant closer, order the TC201 ADA, and that will make the range from 1 through 4. And keep in mind, with a reduced opening force for ADA compliance comes a reduced closing force. So you'll have to make sure that the door closer you're installing it on will be compliant with not only the ADA requirement, but also the closing of the door. So closely observe the maximum value of door size that the unit can be installed with. So you're going to order either a TC201 for non-ADA compliant installations or a TC201 ADA, and it will change the spring tension range from 3 to 6 to 1 to 4. Okay. Moving on. That chart also shows you the ADA compliant version of this as well, in terms of how to set the spring tension so that you're compliant. You can see how that changes between a regular arm and a top jam and the parallel arm installation, and that refers to earlier what I said about the efficiency of how an arm works based on how you're installing it. You'll have to have more adjustment if you're parallel arm installing the closer. That's why a 3 to 6 unit is very common. A scenario for this closer is a emergency exit in a factory building where you've got a 3-foot door, and the door is used not relatively often, but used enough that you'll need a nice grade 1 closer. It'll be installed in a parallel arm fashion because the closer body will be on the inside of the door, and you'll need the ability to adjust that to kick it up to a size 4 is really what would be required for that sort of application. Okay. Getting into the installation instructions for top jam mount, regular arm mount, and skipping over the drop plate, although it's the same sort of concept for the parallel arm mount. And remember, that link is below this video for the parallel arm bracket itself, should you want to order that if you know you're going to do an exterior door that's out swing. All of the door closer installations follow the same type of logic, meaning there's always going to be a dimension that you'll start with, and that's typically dimension A. It's always measured from the vertical axis of pivoting, from the center line to the hinge or the pivot. Okay, not from the edge of the door or not from the frame, but right from the center of the hinge, where the door actually rotates off of. Dimension A is always going to be the first hole, an initial hole to start you on. Okay, and looking at the regular arm mount, which is just on page 2, you do have that dimension A. Now, understanding that it's from the vertical axis of pivoting to the first hole is important. Number 2, it's important to know that the dimension of how far over this is from the hinge point, from the pivoting point, is directly related to the maximum degree opening that the closer will be able to accomplish. You'll see that you can go up to 100 degree, 100 to 120, and then over 120. You will change that dimension A to suit. This closer will go to 180 degrees, provided there's nothing in its way preventing the door from physically swinging that far. But you'll want to template it to be compliant with the range of maximum degree of opening that you want to accomplish. I've even seen door closers installed where they're practically in the middle of the door because they physically wanted to keep the door just opening to 30 degree. You know, you'll see the funniest things out in the world. So, dimension A, how far over? How far over is based on the degree of opening. Once you understand that, you're in good shape. The dimension C that you'll see there, you can physically measure on the closer body. It's just how far over the next screws are. Your vertical height is drawn there at 3/4 inch. You'll always have a relationship to where to place the arm in relationship to dimension A. Dimension A and B go together based on the row that you're working on for the degree of opening. It's important that you get dimension A and dimension B accurate. It's also okay that it's slightly off, because all that you're really modifying is the potential degree of maximum degree of opening. So if you get the horizontal dimensions fudged a 1/16 or an 1/8 of an inch, it's not, that doesn't matter. Now, here's what does matter: the vertical dimensions on the door closer. It is outrageously critical that that 1.25 inch you see on the regular arm mount from the top of the door to the first hole is observed, and it's equally important that the 7/8 from the bottom of the header to that arm shoe here is observed. If you've ever walked through a door and heard a clanking, it was the arm hitting itself or the arm hitting the top of the door. That's because those dimensions aren't accurate. Those dimensions need to be accurate. When I install door closers, regardless of the mount, and they're all, you know, when you look at the top jam and the parallel arm, you will see that you just observe the same logic for installing it. I will always mark my holes on the door. I will then start over. I'll do a reality check and check everything and make sure that you have the holes on the proper side of the door. One time I was doing a regular arm mount, but I put the dimensions on the push side of the door, which was totally wrong. Obviously, it was you know, it's bad. You don't want to drill a hole where it doesn't belong. That's to be sure. So do a reality check. Make sure that it's accurate. Once you know that everything's accurate, I like to use a center punch and tap my holes, because when I take my drill bit to pre-drill the holes, that drill bit's going to be centered nicely where I want it. Okay, that's really for me the secret weapon in terms of accurate hole locating. Is just the bottom line. Also, I don't love using tape measures for that sort of thing if complete accuracy is what you're involved in, because I just don't. I don't think that they're the most accurate way to get within a 1/16 of an inch for a lot of applications. Speaking of that, accurate dimensions, if you're going to do more than a couple, make a template. Make a piece of wood that you can connect up to the corner of the door that's exactly where you want it. The holes are located, and all you really have to do is get that template on the door, clamp it on the door, whatever, and then just quickly mark your holes. Because if you've got the template and you have, let's say, a dozen of them to do, one guy can have the template, he can go mark all the holes, he can go back and pre-drill all the holes while you're coming in behind doing the physical installation, and then after he finishes all that up and you've moved on to doors 3, 4, and 5, he can, you know, leapfrog over you and just start installing closers as well. The most delicate part of the operation is the locating of the screw holes. So if you can marginalize the exposure to risk there and set it up so that it's very quick, easy, and efficient work to do, you'll get through the project far faster. It's just the bottom line. Templates are absolutely the way to go. And then not to mention the fact that if you're going to do it more than on one occasion, you'll have that template ready to go. So the installation logic, again, for all three of the methods is typical. You're always going to have, you know, that same logic. How far over? What's the degree of opening? Observe your, you know, work with your footprint. Observe the vertical height very carefully. Understand what side the latch valves go towards the hinges. It's clearly called out on the installation instructions. It's not the same on top jam and regular arm and parallel arm mounts because of how those work. You're going to have your latch valves towards the hinge side on a regular arm on a top jam installation, and then of course it gets reversed when you have a parallel arm because it's physically flipped over is what it is. If you install a door closer and you can't even get it to move, it might be that you've got the body, you know, physically installed on in the wrong orientation. So your S and your L valves will be towards the hinge for your top jam and your regular arm, and then the body's flipped over for a parallel arm, so it's facing away from the hinges. Again, that's called out on the installation instructions. That's something else to watch out for. Now, the final page, final adjustment really is important. You'll do your, once you're physically installed, you will do your power adjustment to make sure that the closer operates correctly in terms of the force it's engaging on the spring to get the door closed. Okay. Then you're going to have your other two valves, your latch and your sweep valve, your L and your S. So that's easy to remember, L and S. L is latch. That's the 10 degrees. Just from 10 degrees to close, that's the latching valve. From 10 out to 90 is your sweep. That's the sweep range of the door closer. That's the sweep. You can control those independently. You might want to slow the sweep down a little bit and increase the latch so that it goes relatively nice and then closes firmly. The valves you can tailor to account for conditions of the door and frame. If your door is a little warped or the jambs are kicked in so that the door actually is kind of rising a little bit, you can play with that information. The static air pressure condition in the building can affect that, will affect it as well. So you might need to slow something down, you might need to speed something up to account for those conditions. Also your lock conditions as well. You might have a funny lock where it needs to go a little bit slower. If it goes fast, it'll bounce out because maybe the hole in the strike plate is not exactly the correct size based on the lock installation or the frame installation. So you can tailor those. And what I like to do is just test the door closer to begin with. And if it works fine, don't touch it. Just, there's no reason to. These valves appear to be staked, meaning the staking that's done there and there ought to help prevent you from removing the valve too far. Okay, you don't want to remove the valve too far because the contents of oil in here are under pressure, and that if you were to turn that counterclockwise too far, the valve itself can come out and you'll lose oil. So observe the amount of adjusting that you're going to do. If you find that you don't have any adjustment over it, or your closer isn't handling the change of adjustment, it's probably the wrong application for the closer. That it's too small of a closer on too large of a door, things of that nature. So test it, make any adjustments as necessary. I wouldn't make any significant adjustments because you probably won't need many significant changes to be made to the adjustments on the factory set closer. It's basically set for a size 4, and that's what it's going to work on out of the box. But the last page gives you the detail of what that information means. Now the last thing is the back check. The back check kicks in after the sweep portion, so it kicks in past basically 90 degree. Imagine an exterior door that swings out in a windy condition. The door gets to 90 and the wind just grabs it, or the door gets partially open. The back check valve helps arrest the swinging of the door, which is a beneficial concept. Now it's not a dead stop, but it will help retard that door from going further than it should. So the back check is, in my opinion, something that you absolutely want to have on exterior doors that swing out. I had talked about the reveal on the top jam mount earlier, that I would discuss that. The max you can have on the reveal for a top jam mount is 2 7/8 of an inch. That's if you're doing a top jam. This is attached to the header. Then your frame is down here, and your door will fit in here. The dimension from the face of the door to the face of where the body is attached to, maximum 2 7/8. If you have a 5 3/4 frame, a 5 3/4 jam depth, 5 3/4 minus the 2 15/16 rabbet for the door pocket where the door sits, you're going to be at basically 2 13/16. Okay, 2 7/8, you know, in that range, plus the door inset. The maximum reveal for this closer with this arm as supplied is intended really for just a 5 3/4 jam depth frame, not to exceed that. If you have an 8 3/4 jam or something larger than 5 3/4, you need a deep reveal arm, which is basically going to give you a longer forearm portion so that you can physically thread this out further so that you can get it connected out further. So you would need a deep reveal arm, so keep that in mind. Now, in terms of other accessories that are indeed available for this closer, there are the top jam extender, they call it. It's just going to be a longer forearm. There is a drop plate that you'll use for a parallel arm installation should you not have adequate top rail to physically install the body onto. You can get one of those. You can get that same drop plate for the header if you're doing a top jam installation. You can do a hold open version of this closer, a hold open arm. You can get a plastic cover for it. And then of course sex bolts. So all of those items are extras on top of it. But just keep in mind that you can order this closer with the accessories to suit how you want to apply it to the door and frame. So backing up, this is not an ADA compliant closer. I know that I had inferred initially that it is. The TC201 itself is not ADA compliant. In order for it to be ADA compliant, you have to order the TC201 ADA. That will change the valve range. It's a very common closer. I think it's a good closer. I've sold lots of these. I just wish that the parallel arm bracket was included as standard, but there is a link again below this video to that page where you can pick that up as well. If you have any questions on the TC201 global door closer or any other global product, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.